much, MEC. We feel most welcome in Gauteng, assuming that I'm not a resident of Gauteng, which I am actually, but I feel welcome, MEC, and I think colleagues from the investment community, from within South Africa, from the region, feel most welcome. And MEC, for your information, we have the Honorable Secretary of State of Hotels from Republic of Angola in the audience with us, and I was looking at him when you were busy delivering your opening remarks. He was concentrating on what you were saying, and he was taking the challenge that you put into him about Gauteng, and I can see him going back to Angola and say, I'm going to match those people of Gauteng. They're doing some great stuff. I think I'm going to match them when I get back. And MEC, he means business. He met with us yesterday, and he actually said he was just copy everything we're doing, and he wants to enhance it. So next time he's inviting you to Angola to come and see how they do it in Angola in style. And MEC, I hope you're still going to be with us, because later on we have a session with the Minister of Tourism and Transport from Senegal. He's also saying he will want to tell you what they're doing in his part of the world. But we will understand, MEC, if you can join us. But I know Dawn and the team from Gauteng Tourism and other members of the board will also be with us here. Ladies and gentlemen, I heard the MEC talking about inviting especially colleagues coming outside of Gauteng to take a short left. What does that mean? It means once you've done the conference and you have a bit of a leisure time, explore Gauteng, explore Sandton, explore Johannesburg, explore Tshwane, Pretoria, which is the legislative, shall we say, the executive capital of this country called South Africa. So that's what a short left means. It means just take a, half a day's drive, explore what this province has to offer. So at this point in time, I want to invite a friend of this conference. He's been with us, Chris, for years, to please talk to us about what's going on in the economy. Chris?
Good morning, everybody. And whenever one's talking about the African economy, and again, one's got to be careful that there isn't just a single African economy. There are many, and each one is very different. But it's always, in a sense, these days, one can actually reflect that with at least a high degree of optimism. And I want to try and outline this. But one's always got to be careful of gushing over something that's been a success story over the last several years and just say, well, there are no problems. Of course there are problems, and I want to try and outline both, all right? But let's see how we go. What I want to specifically talk about is how is Africa forging ahead, all right? And what have been the factors that have unlocked the growth, the specific factors, but of course it's not the whole story. There's a multiplicity of stories as far as that's concerned. But look at the macroeconomic instability. That is always a risk that seems to be hanging across. And then have a look at where Africa is, what we must actually be trying to do to actually get ahead. And then we go through the outlook. The first thing is the growth. Africa forging ahead. Basically, in 2007, what I've marked on this chart here are the 25 top growing economies in the world. Okay, 5 of them were in Africa. And then 2008 hit. That was the global financial crisis. This was a developed market crisis that hit the world, and it hit everybody. And fast forward a little bit to 2009, and you'll see that the number of the top 25 growing economies in the world, well, now suddenly, instead of 4, it's now 10 out of 25 are African. And then you go forward to 2015, that's next year, where 14 of the top 25 fastest growing economies in Africa, in the world, are in Africa. Okay. And that immediately says, that is interesting. because growth means that the economies are starting to mobilize and starting to rise. But one's always got to be careful of these measures called growth and that, or inflation and that sort of thing, because it always is reflecting the change in what's taking place. We mustn't forget that the levels are very different. So the developed world, for instance, if we have a look at what contribution the economies actually make in the global world, the African contribution to overall economic development is still tiny, right? And that we've got to be mindful of, because sometimes the success and growth means that we forget sometimes the reason, and we shift from continuing to try hard because we've got a long way to go. But one of the most important things in actually seeing the growth taking place is the transformation that is taking place with ordinary people in Africa. If we go back to 2000 and go through the World Bank's classification of countries of poor, middle income, and rich, all right, this is what they were all classified. These were all the poor countries in Africa, or most of them were poor. Very few actually, were classified as rich. Go forward now, and you'll see, for instance, that the number of poor countries, or countries that are classified as low income, is actually reduced considerably. But unfortunately, it still makes quite a long list in that. But the transformation that's taken place over the last 15 years is phenomenal in the number of people that have been lifted out of poverty across the continent, because you are seeing this growth. Economic growth is absolutely essential. You see this time and time again, whether it's in India or China or Africa or whatever, is that where you've got poverty, economic growth makes a difference. I know one of the big issues is inequality and that, but you don't have inequality if everybody's poor. And we've got to be very careful of blaming successful people as the cause of inequality. We actually have to look at the actual causes of why people fell. And we're going to try and unpack that to a certain extent. But we even have one country which has got the fortune of oil, and that's Equatorial Guinea, that is actually classified as a high-income country. But have a look at that. That is a phenomenal achievement over the last 15 years as to what's happened in Africa. So what have been the critical growth unlocks that we've had? And I think, although there's been a number of factors, there's three key factors that I think have unlocked growth, but none of them are by any stage, right, at their perfection. But it's the improvement in a lot of these factors that have actually led to the growth unlock. Remember, we're coming from a very poor state. In cricket terms, other countries already have the runs on the board, as it were. In other words, they've already achieved a level of affluence which is quite significant. Africa still has to achieve this. But the first important thing is the improvement of governance, right? And the reason why the improvement of governance is so important is that it affects the investment timeline. Can you just think, if you've got a government that's there because they took over in a coup, for instance, all right, and doing business under that arrangement is under the patronage of the person who's in power at that stage. When you're in business, you don't know how long the sun is going to shine. All right, what happens? You make as much money as you can. You don't invest in the business. You ship as much money offshore as possible, etc. Because when that person gets ousted in the next coup, you don't know if you're going to be there, even if you can stay in the country. And so it's difficult. But when the politics starts taking place under constitutional arrangement, where you have good elections that people trust and that are free and fair, your investment timelines just shoot out, and suddenly things like that do have long timelines that are needed, like infrastructure and mining, manufacturing, start to become a lot more viable. And that's the critical, important thing. When you've got the rule of law, that improvement of governance is important. The second huge big unlock has been the advent of technologies, especially cellular telephony, because cellular telephony has really given access of the humblest people in society. They've been given access to the global modern economy for the first time on a mass scale. That actually has been a growth unlock that I think is important. And the third thing is the world is racked with debt. Africa had an enormous advantage going into the global financial crisis, which is a debt crisis, is that Africa was not credit worthy. So they didn't have the debts at government level or even at company level or at household level. So when the global financial crisis hit, the cash still kept flowing, etc., and it hit the region the least. It wasn't the only reason. Another reason is that the growth in Africa has become multi-sectoral, and one of the reasons that it has become multi-sectoral has been the integration of the South African economy into Africa. South Africa, the only strong multi-sectoral economy, has the investment from South Africa into Africa has reflected that multi-sectoral nature of our economy. Before then, what used to happen outside investment into Africa tended to be in resources and that kind of thing, and that was about it. And so you had one commodity type of economies. So previously, when the copper price was down, the Zambian economy was flat on its face. And when the copper price was up, there was some life. Now, when the copper price was hit in the global financial crisis, what happened? There were other sectors in Zambia that helped to sustain its growth, because its growth has become multi-sectoral. And so that's become a richer, more important thing. So that's a critical thing, and this is where we need to keep improving in terms of Africa. We can see the improvement by the long-term decline in the inflation rate in Africa and the rise in the growth rate at the same time. Now, you will never, ever achieve that without improving macroeconomic management. And that's what's been happening across Africa. Better macroeconomic management has led to rising growth rates, falling inflation rates, which is, in my view, the risk-reward of an economy. Lower risk, higher reward, and now